Someone says something to you, something small, an offhand comment, a bit of unsolicited advice, a text that's worded slightly wrong, and instead of shrugging it off, you're furious or hurt or replaying it in your head at 2 a.m, composing the perfect response you'll never send. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a small, inconvenient voice saying, this reaction doesn't match what just happened. You know it's too much, you know it doesn't make sense, but you can't stop feeling it. That's not a malfunction. That's a message. And if you're willing to listen to it instead of judging yourself for having it, it will tell you something about yourself that nothing else can reach. That's what triggers actually are, not weaknesses or overreactions, messengers from a part of you that doesn't have any other way of getting your attention. Today, I would like to talk to you about what those messengers are actually saying and what happens when you finally listen. So let's talk about what's actually happening when you get triggered, because the word gets thrown around a lot and I think we've lost what it really means. A trigger is not the thing that upsets you. The comment, the text, the look someone gave you, that's the surface event. The trigger is what that event touches inside you. It's the old wound that the present moment accidentally bumps into. Think of it like this. You're walking through your house in the dark and you bang your shin on the coffee table. The pain you feel is real and immediate, but the reason it hurts so much isn't the table, it's the bruise you already had. That's what a trigger is. The coffee table is what just happened. The bruise is what happened years ago that never fully healed. And the intensity of your reaction, the rage, the tears, the 3 days of replaying it, that's proportional to the bruise, not the table. This is why the same comment can roll off one person and devastate another. It's not because one of them is stronger and the other is weak. It's because one of them has a bruise in that exact spot and the other doesn't. The comment, "you're too sensitive," barely registers for someone who grew up being told their feelings mattered. But for the woman who spent her childhood being told she was too much, too dramatic, too emotional, that comment doesn't land on the surface. It lands on a wound that's been open for decades. And here's what most people do with that pain. They manage the reaction instead of tending to the wound. They tell themselves they're overreacting. They push it down. They apologise for having the feeling in the first place. Or they explode and then they feel ashamed and then they push that down too. What they almost never do is ask the question that actually matters. Where is the bruise? When did it get there? And what does it need? That's shadow work. Not the Instagram version of shadow work where you journal about your inner child for 15 minutes and feel enlightened. the real kind, the kind where you trace the wire from the explosion all the way back to the place it started, and you actually look at what you find. I've found that triggers tend to fall into 3 categories, 3 different messengers, each carrying a different kind of unfinished business. And once you learn to tell them apart, you stop reacting blindly and start understanding what's actually being asked of you. The first messenger is rage, disproportionate anger, the fury that doesn't match the situation. Someone crosses a small boundary and you want to burn the house down. Someone dismisses your opinion and you're shaking with rage that feels ancient. Rage as a trigger almost always points to the same place, a boundary that was violated so early or so often that you stop trying to hold it. You learned it was easier to be quiet, to comply, to keep the peace. And now, decades later, when someone crosses even a small line, the rage isn't about this moment. It's every moment you swallowed your no to keep someone else comfortable. That rage isn't a problem. It's the part of you that remembers you deserved a boundary and never got one. She's not overreacting. She's been waiting a very long time to be heard. The second messenger is grief. This one's sneakier because it often shows up disguised as something else. Jealousy, withdrawal, the sudden urge to cry at something that shouldn't make you cry, a tightness in your chest when someone announces the thing you secretly wanted but talked yourself out of wanting. Grief triggers are almost always about the unlived life, the path you didn't take, the version of yourself you set aside, the desire you buried because it felt too dangerous or too selfish or too impractical to want. When you then see someone else living that thing, the creative life, the freedom, the relationship, the boldness you denied yourself, it doesn't just make you jealous, it reminds you of something you lost. And the grief of that loss is what floods in, wearing jealousy's clothes. If you've ever felt inexplicably devastated watching someone else succeed at the thing you secretly want, that's not envy, that's your golden shadow, the buried version of you tapping on the glass. The third messenger is the one you avoid. This is the trigger you don't even recognise as a trigger because you've gotten so good at steering around it. The conversation you always redirect. The topic that makes you change the subject so smoothly nobody notices. The question you laugh off. The thing you physically leave the room to avoid sitting with. The avoidance trigger is the most important one because it's the one guarding the thing you most need to look at. Rage is loud, you can't miss it. Grief breaks through eventually, but avoidance can run your entire life without you ever realising there's a locked room in the house you've been walking past every day for years. In Scottish folklore, there's a figure called the Bean Nighe, the washerwoman at the ford. She appears at the water's edge, washing the burial clothes of someone who's about to die. She doesn't chase you, she doesn't shout, she's just there at the edge doing her work, and you can choose to approach her or you can choose to look away. The old stories say that if you have the courage to approach the Bean Nighe and ask her your questions, she'll answer them honestly. But most people see her and walk the other way, because approaching means acknowledging what she's washing, and you might not be ready for that answer. Your avoidance trigger is the Bean Nighe. She's at the edge of your awareness, quietly tending to the truth you keep walking past. She's not going to chase you, but she's not going to leave either. Now here's the part nobody in the wellness space wants to say out loud. Understanding your triggers is not the same as doing something about them. You can name your rage, you can trace your grief, you can identify exactly which room in the house you've been avoiding and describe in detail what's probably behind the door. You can do all of that and still be standing in exactly the same place you were standing 3 years ago. I've seen this constantly. Women who are incredibly self-aware, who've done the therapy, read the books, pulled the cards, listened to the podcasts, who can narrate their own patterns with the precision of a psychologist, and who are still making the same choices, staying in the same situations, living the same half-life they've been living for years. Because somewhere along the way, the spiritual industry told us that understanding is the work, that awareness is the transformation, that if you journal about it enough, it'll eventually resolve itself. Oh, I don't think it will. Understanding the bruise doesn't heal it. It just means you know it's there. Healing is what happens when you change something because of what you now know. When you set the boundary your rage has been begging for. When you grieve the unlived life properly instead of scrolling past the feeling. When you walk toward your Bean Nighe instead of away from her. A trigger isn't asking you to understand it, it's asking you to act on what it reveals. And that's the part that takes courage, not the knowing, the doing. I would like to leave you with something to do with all this, not just to think about, to do. This week, I would like you to watch for a trigger, just one. The next time you feel a reaction that's too big for the situation, the fury, the tears, the urge to flee, don't judge it, don't push it down, don't perform being calm about it. Instead, sit down when you can and answer these 3 questions. 1. What just happened on the surface? Not the story you're telling yourself about it, just the facts. What was said, what was done, what occurred. 2. What did it feel like inside me? Not what I thought about it, what I felt in my body, the heat, the tightness, the sinking. Where was it? What was its texture? 3. When is the first time I remember feeling this exact feeling? Not this situation, this feeling. Go as far back as you can, because I guarantee this isn't the first time your body has felt this. And the first time is where the bruise lives. That third question is where shadow work actually begins, not in the analysis and the tracing back, following the wire from the present day explosion all the way to the original wound. And then, this is the part people skip, asking yourself, what does this wound need me to do differently, starting now? Not starting next year, not starting when you feel ready, starting now. If this video made you stop and recognise something about your reactions, your patterns, the rooms you've been walking past, I'd like you to know that's not a problem to fix. That's your self-awareness doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The only question is what you do next. I've created a free resource called the Threshold Tarot Spread, 5 cards rooted in Scottish folklore designed for the women standing between knowing and choosing. It's free, it's on my website, and the link is in the description. If you're ready to go deeper into the shadow work we talked about today, At the Threshold is a self-guided resource with journaling prompts, reflective practices and exercises built for exactly this kind of work. It's £11, private, at your own pace, link below. And if what you're looking for is someone to sit with you in this, to hold up the mirror and help you see what you're not seeing in your own, that's what the shadow map reading is for. A personal tarot reading designed not to predict your future, but to illuminate what's happening beneath the surface right now. That link is in the description too. The lantern letters go out every Sunday, a weekly reflection on tarot, shadow work and folklore for women navigating a crossroads. If you would like that in your inbox, the link is below. I'm Carrie, this is Sage in the Sky, and your triggers aren't your enemy, they're the most honest part of you trying to get your attention. The question is whether you're brave enough to listen.